Hello, my sweeties, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't already know me, my name is Celise, and thank you for joining my spooky little family. In today's video, it's all for you. We'll be talking about the Omen franchise. Let's get into the video. This is going to be a long one. This is a very long script that I have written for this video. The Omen franchise features several supernatural horror films, a television series, and numerous novels. It began in 1976 with the film The Omen and centers on Damien Thorne, a child born of Satan and adopted by Robert and Catherine Thorne as a baby. As he grows up, it becomes clear to the Thornes that Damien is the Antichrist, but he destroys each of his relatives so that he can obtain sole ownership of the family's wealth. By the time he is a 32-year-old adult and in control of the family corporation, he begins a career in politics with the ultimate goal of eventually becoming president. Yes, this franchise kind of goes all over the place. Though I personally feel like this is an incredible standalone film, it of course spawned an entire franchise, and we are talking about all of them here today. Oh my goodness. Now that I just gave you a little rundown of the first film and its origin, we need to get into my ranking for these because this is a franchise that easily is not the worst, though I have been told this is one of the worst franchises and they're all really hard to get through outside of the first one. I'm not really sure what everyone is on because has anyone else seen Phantasm? I just watched that entire franchise and I can tell you, there's worse than the Omen franchise. Trust me, babes, there is worse. While people write this off as being one of the worst franchises and completely ruining the story of Damien and yada yada yada, I will say that I actually had a lot of fun watching all of these movies, surprisingly, and no, not all of them are good per se, but to call them the worst is pretty crazy, and we're gonna get into why. And now let's get into my personal ranking of the Omen franchise. Before we get into the films, I am going to leave the TV show Damien as an honorable mention, as I did watch one episode. I think this, unfortunately, is the weakest contender. Though I have not seen the show, obviously, in its entirety, this show felt very Riverdale-esque. This felt like a CW show, even though it was A&E, and at this time, the TV show actually was released in 2016, but around this time, there was a little bit of a trend with these horror movies having TV shows, Bates Motel being an example, which was also on A&E. Now, I personally really enjoyed that series, so I thought that Damien would kind of be on that level, given that it is on A&E, but actually what you receive is like this very CW kind of vibe. And basically what they wanted to go for in the show is a reimagining of the Omen and have this contemporary take on the life of Damien. And it just doesn't work. He's now this like romantic, complex protagonist, and he grew up seemingly unaware of the evil forces around him. And then the past catches up with him, forcing him to face his true identity, blah, blah, blah. And basically they make him like this brooding, very sexy, kind of tortured soul, which to me is where the Riverdale-esque nature of the show comes in, because it just feels like it is catered to kind of like teenage girls, which doesn't really work for me. And now let's kick it off with all of the films. So at number 6, I have The Omen IV, The Awakening from 1991. A Virginia congressman and his wife see signs of the devil in their adopted daughter, Delia. This synopsis is about as bleak and boring as the movie. This film was actually intended to be the first of many television sequels to 20th Century Fox's film history of popular titles. Bernhardt, who also produced the previous 3 Omen films, felt there could be more done to the series, and this was actually the last film that he produced. And that says a lot. I will say though that this film is hilarious in every possible way. It has so many different stories going on in it, and it really doesn't feel scary at all. It very much feels like a TV movie, kind of like Lifetime-y if I'm being honest. Like it's like one of those Lifetime movies that have like a psycho child who's like trying to kill the stepmom or something. That's the vibe it gives off. Though I did find it a little bit fun to see a little girl kind of be crazy and really embrace this evil while giving sassy looks every now and then. I don't know, she was kind of serving. You know, just girly things. Though I do think that the twist with Karen and Delia and this whole convoluted mess that Delia is actually Damien's daughter and that she is the protector of the new Antichrist, her twin brother Alexander, whose embryo was carried inside Delia before being implanted into Karen by Dr. Hastings, who's like in on the whole thing? What? They clearly watched Rosemary's Baby before making this movie, and they took lots of notes, and then they did this. Now at number 5, we have The Omen 2006. A new age of evil threatens to arise when an American diplomat played by Liev Schreiber and his wife, played by Julia Stiles, learn that the child they adopted may be the son of Satan. Now, the Omen remake was actually released on June 6, 2006, which is a very important date for me because that was my birthday. This release date actually referenced the number of the beast and was mirroring the fact that the original film was released on June 6, 1976, so they also have the 3 6s. Now, little fun fact about me, that year, 2006, on this date, it was quite like hell in school for me because every little kid in my school thought it would be funny to call me the devil and say that my birthday was cursed, which really made me feel not great. And now here I am at 28 years old talking about this franchise, and my birthday's around the corner, and I plan on getting a Omen tattoo of the birthmark, and I'm just really embracing that. I love that. My birthday is indeed on a cursed date. Thank you. We love the devil. Some may say I'm in my healing era. Now, despite this remake being almost exactly the same as the original film, this film particularly does about nothing for me, especially with the original film being one of my favorite religious horror films and one of my favorite films of the 70s. This remake just felt particularly boring. I don't think specifically that I liked the pairing of Liev Schreiber and Julia Stiles. I just don't feel like they really had much chemistry, and to be honest, I don't think 2006 was a great year for horror movies in general. This remake, unfortunately, when you rewatch it now, it really does feel super dated, and a lot of the scares are very dated, very 2006. And it's very interesting how this film specifically, for me, feels so dated, and the original film actually feels timeless. Another thing I don't really like about this remake is that it really is just a shot-for-shot, basically, remake of the original film, adding really nothing new or interesting to it. And that to me was kind of unfortunate and not really necessary. And now at number 4, I'm pretty sure you're all going to get your pitchforks out for me. We have the Omen III, The Final Conflict. Starring Daddy Sam Neill, the film tells the progression of the now adult Damien Thorne to a position of earthly power set against the countdown to the second coming and attempts of a group of priests to kill the Antichrist. I know everyone right now is furiously typing in the comments section about how this is one of the worst movies they've ever seen, but actually listen to my points first, maybe finish the video even, and then you can say what you need to say, okay? Although this film has an unfortunate thing where it is missing Ave Santani, which is insane. It's a criminal act that Ave Santani is not here. One of the best scores that makes me want to throw ass every single time I hear it, but no, it's not here, which is kind of sad, but Jerry Goldsmith actually did return to do the score for this film. And he did actually stay true to his style of the first 2 scores. He actually used a orchestral choral blend with light electronic elements to create the film's sound, which I did find really interesting. I actually did like the score of the movie. It's just a shame that Ave Santani is not there. I mean, be so serious. Now, before you get all crazy, I really hate to break it to some of you, this is definitely not the worst film in this franchise. I do personally feel like there is a lot to like, the biggest thing being that Sam Neill is playing the Antichrist, which is crazy. And though the screenplay is not the strongest by any means, and it does get a little bit convoluted and weird because the ending of this film is just not good, Sam Neill really carries, and he is so incredibly interesting to watch as a performer. I feel like he just has this way of really like luring the audience in. And the fact that he's playing this very menacing role with all these little subtleties in the performance is like a little delicious treat. I quite enjoyed how much fun he looked like he was having and how evil he got with Damien. I mean, I gotta be real, Damien killing multiple babies was absolutely insane and not something that I thought I'd see in this movie. I thought that was pretty wild, and I did find that pretty fun for this movie that everybody has been telling me is dog shit. This film is fun when it's fun, and it drags when it drags. It really does drag. And then it gets fun again, and then it has this really crazy kooky ending that ultimately ends with a Bible verse that I don't care about, nor do I understand. And the fact that they ended the film with the Bible verse and that's it? Did we run out of budget? Of course, to no one's surprise, this film was received very, very negatively and was, of course, not a commercial success. But I will say this was definitely interesting to see, and I did like seeing an older 30-something Damien in power. I thought it was very interesting, but that's the issue with a lot of the sequels here. There's so many interesting ideas and there's these little glimmers of hope, and then they just don't really go for it, or they just do something kind of ridiculous. And that's really unfortunate because, I mean, you have Sam Neill. And now at number 3, we have Damien, Omen II. Damien the Antichrist, now about to turn 13 years old, finally learns of his destiny under the guidance of an unholy disciple of Satan. I'm so sorry. I read the Letterboxd reviews for this. None of you are convincing me that this film is like actually bad. We're just not doing that. We're not doing that. I actually want to rewatch this movie and show it to friends that haven't seen it. And I'm being so for real. This is not as bad as half of y'all are saying. Though the screenplay for this does leave a lot to be desired, and that is where I think it struggles a little bit. David Seltzer, who wrote the first film screenplay, was asked by producers to write the second. He actually refused for he had no interest in writing sequels. But years later, he did comment that if he had written the story for the second Omen, he would have said it the day after the first installment, with Damien, a child, living in the White House. Now, with Seltzer turning down Omen II, producer Harvey Bernhard duly outlined the story himself, and Stanley Mann was hired to write the screenplay. The earliest drafts did present Damien as a teenager and actually featured a female love interest, which I am so sad that that actually got deleted from the final film, because I do think that would have been really interesting. Part 2, we have Damien going through puberty and then like finding out he's the Antichrist, and I do really feel like had there had been like his first crush or first like girlfriend, that would have been really interesting. I think it would have added a different level of depth to his character and kind of make him a little bit more complex, which I really just would have loved to see. Also, I want to mention a fun little trivia moment. The casting was really interesting for this movie. William Holden was considered to star as Robert Thorne in the first Omen film, but actually turned it down because he didn't want to star in a horror movie. Specifically, he did not want to star in a movie about the devil. Now, what's interesting is that after The Omen became a huge hit, Holden made sure he did not turn down coming on to The Omen II, which I just feel like is so interesting. He was like, oh my god, people dig this, I need to be in it. Also, Lee Grant, who was cast, was originally a big fan of the original film and was thrilled to accept the role of Anne Thorne, and she really did great. I loved her. All of the actors really sell this movie for me, and this is also just a movie that's overall pretty serious and not goofy, which I did think after the first film they were gonna get goofy with it, but they actually stuck to just being pretty serious. Now, we have to talk about the absolute star of this movie, and he is actually the reason why I really love this movie so much. You guys are not gonna tell me that Jonathan Scott Taylor as Damien did not serve or slay. He was serving and slaying over a hot stove for us. He understood the assignment. He did so much for me. I loved all of his delivery, and he really sells evil really well. I just love that so much. Also, one of my favorite scenes, actually two favorite scenes that really sold this movie for me being actually good, has to be the big scene between Damien and his teacher, where he essentially embarrasses his teacher with his knowledge, which is such a slay scene. That to me is cinema right there. Not to mention, that elevator kill is absolutely badass. You guys can't be serious about saying that this one is bad. And now at number 2, we have, to no surprise, The First Omen. A young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, but encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. This film stars one of my favorite actresses, Nell Tiger-Free, and is directed by Arkasha Stevenson, who really blew everybody away with this directorial debut, which we really love to see because, oh my god, this franchise really did need a woman to direct at least one of them. Oh my goodness. Now, I did an entire review of The First Omen, so all of my thoughts on every little thing is in that video, so be sure to check it out. But this film to me is easily on par with the original film and fits right into the universe so perfectly. The film received positive reviews from critics and actually grossed $53.7 million worldwide, and I am so happy that it did. What a win for us baddies. This film just had such an authentic 70s feel to it, and it did not shy away at all from its body horror, and it really does shine in that department. Such great practical effects. So many beautiful homages to films like Rosemary's Baby and Possession from 1981. I felt very connected to this film, and I am so happy it was made, and ultimately, it is the film that really made me want to get my 666 tattoo. And now, I am sure you are all here and know exactly what my number one is going to be. Number one is The Omen 1976. Of course, it's the original film. Who do you think I am? The original film stars Gregory Peck and Lee Remick and Harvey Spencer Stevens and follows Damien Thorne, a young child replaced at birth by his father, unbeknownst to his wife, after their biological child dies shortly after birth. As a series of mysterious events and violent deaths occur around the family and Damien enters childhood, they come to learn he is in fact the prophesized Antichrist. And of course, to no one's surprise, The Omen actually received mixed reviews critically, but overall it was a commercial success. It actually became one of the highest growing films of 1976, which is absolutely iconic. It remains iconic to this day. Also, a little fun fact that I actually didn't know till I did my research for this video. The film also received 2 Oscar nominations, including a win for Jerry Goldsmith's musical score, which I mean, obviously, Ave Santani is a bop. In terms of the casting for this film, which is absolutely perfect, and that's why I want to talk about it, Gregory Peck had been the choice to portray the ambassador from the very beginning, and Peck actually got involved with the project through his agent, who was friends with the producer, and after reading the script, Peck reportedly liked the idea that it was more of a psychological thriller rather than a horror film. He didn't really see it as a horror film, so he decided to star in it. He was at first displeased with the props and effects for making the death scenes, but ultimately he was relieved at the end to find how restrained and non-exploitative they were. Also, we have to talk about another little icon that really makes the movie for me, and I'm sure for lots of other people. We have to talk about Harvey Stevens. So his casting was pretty interesting. Over 500 boys had auditioned for this role, which is insane. Now, Harvey actually won this role because apparently Donner encouraged the boys to attack him during a group audition, which I don't even know how that's legal. And apparently Harvey ended up clawing at Donner's face and kicked him in the groin because he was really, really upset. And ultimately that landed him the role. So I mean, go off. The casting is perfect. Everyone in this movie, perfect. Chef's kiss. Everybody just delivers everything so well. I love the way the film is shot. I mean, it's a timeless movie. To me, it's a masterpiece. Some may say it's too slow. You know, maybe it's not for everybody, but this is certainly for me. I am a religious horror-loving 70s baddie. And a lot of iconic lines and iconic shots from this film remain in horror history for a reason. So if you haven't seen this film and you've only seen the remake, I mean, like, what are you doing? All right, you guys, that is my ranking of the Omen franchise. We did it, we got through it. I'm not sure if I'll be met with negative comments. Certainly the Chucky franchise ranking really worked against me because some of y'all were really mad about that. But you know what? I stand by the fact that the Omen franchise is actually not the worst franchise I've ever seen. Once again, Phantasm and Friday the 13th exist. So are we being serious? That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe as it really helps me a lot. And be sure to click that little notification bell to be up to date every single time I upload. And let me know in the comments if you like any of the sequels from The Omen. I'd love to talk about it. Actually, tell me your ranking. That'd be great. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.